Hi, Professor V here. I'm off country right now trying to get back in, and it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to make it to class um, tonight. So I decided to give you a recording of week 6 that covers all the material plus assignments for paper C and D. And again, I'm going really forward on this just because I want to make sure that you get all the material that you need to up front so that you're not overwhelmed in the last 3 weeks. So today we start week 6. We have a paper that is due at the end of week 6, paper C, and then we got presentation D that is due before the class on Wednesday for week 8, next Wednesday. So we're still ahead. The good news is that the presentation is based on the paper C submission, and I will discuss that in more detail. It is supposed to be a project, a group project, and I am not particularly a fan of group projects because if I do a group project, I'm going to be the leader and you're going to be the participants to model what a group project should look like. And you know how it is. There's always people who have issues with participation in group projects. So to avoid that, it's only a partial group project, and I'll explain that as I go too. So let's get first onto the week 6 presentation. I'm going to start with my slideshow. I'm going to take it off topic for a little second to talk a little bit about risk, because I think that's important to the IT professional, because to be honest, every time you have responsibilities over an IT capability or system, there has to be some assumptions of responsibility, because there's always the possibility of a cyber attack, or maybe something goes wrong with the application or system you're working. So we're going to start with that first. So I'm going to minimize my camera here, and then we'll give it a try. To bring that baby down. And as always, my presentations start from the beginning. All right. So I hope that you're able to see this. Again, week 6. I'm going to skip that. We're in week 6 and 7. It addresses a bunch of things, IT professionals. I'm going to try to focus a little bit on the practical things while summarizing the rest, because you have the material there, so I'm not too worried about that. All right. Any questions about week 5 assignments? I'm really pleased with what was done there. It's just a question now of let me see if I can put my camera up front a little bit so you guys can see me. I'm really pleased with the assignment itself, what you guys have done so far. So again, I'm still grading, but great job, great job. Maybe this may be a little bit better, I think, to see side by side. All right, so we're looking at a boring video. All right, bring that down, close this in. There we go. That's what I want. All right, so let me talk about risk to start with. What is risk? And sometimes the risk is yours to take. Sometimes the risk is not yours to take. It may be a risk that you're assuming for the organization or for a superior. And it's very important that in IT information systems, you know who is the assumer of the risk. Because sometimes we make decisions that jeopardize an entire system and we don't even know. So you always have to have that presence in mind. Let's just take an admin, right? A system admin changes one of the admin settings, and all of a sudden you shut down the entire network. So, but then there is you contain data that belongs to other people, and all of a sudden it's compromised either by you or by someone else that makes a mistake, clicks on a bad link. So anyway, I want you to understand that. And if you become a project management, managing a project requires you to do trade-offs sometimes. We talk, every project has a scope, it has a time, it has a budget, it has resources. So you have to manage that. And every time you want to make a change, there are going to be trade-offs in all those areas. For example, a boss comes to you and says, I need that system faster. Okay, I can do it faster. I need more money. to hire more people to do it, or I need more time because if you don't have enough people, that means it's going to take you longer to develop those capabilities that people. So there's a trade-off, and with those trade-offs, there are risks. All right. So some people define it as the possibility of losing something of value, as an intentional interaction with uncertainty, which is kind of really what we're dealing with in information systems. You know what you know as a project management information systems, but then there's unintended consequences. And then this is risk perception is a subjective judgment people make about the severe probability of a risk. And there is today what you do in risk management if they assign categories. For example, there's a low risk of something happening, there's a moderate risk of something happening, there is a high risk of something happening. Or you can go with numbers 1 to 10 and you assign sometimes objectively, sometimes subjectively, the level of risk that a certain event that could happen and couldn't happen. Other people use percentages. There's a 50% chance that something may happen or not. So either way you use it, you have to understand that everybody understands that matrix that you're using to evaluate the risk and what is that you are assuming, right? Whether it's in a project or an IT capability of some type. All right, since management is kind of what I just described it. It's the idea of having a way to identify, evaluate, and prioritize the risk when you work in the information system. By the way, this is very practical just in real life, right? Whether you realize it or not, whenever you buy something, whenever you let your kid do something, you're assuming a certain amount of risk, right? He goes out in a bicycle ride outside the house, right? You're assuming a certain risk that is going to be riding in your neighborhood or on your driveway or in the sidewalk, and each carries a different level of risk. If you allow a kid to do something else, the chance of something happening, right? So from an information systems management perspective, is our ability to always be conscious of our environment, how to identify, evaluate, prioritize. And every organization has their way to manage risk. And you, as you grow up as a manager, a supervisor, a manager, or even project management sometime, you have to think about those things and as you assume risk. And which one is yours to assume and which ones are not. There may be a point in which your project has pursued to a point that you need to go to someone else higher to talk about the risk or whatever the issue is, and then for someone to approve it and to assume that risk. And we'll get more into that. And then finally, I would like to say that most organizations do have risk management processes in place. You need to get familiar with those risk management processes in place. Again, this is outside of the class material, but I think it's very important for IT professionals to understand that in IT and information systems, there is that involved. And then the second part of this definition, followed by a coordinated and economical application of resources to minimize, monitor, and control the probability or impact of unfortunate events or to maximize the realization opportunities. In other words, do you have a workaround? If you know a risk would happen, do you have a plan in place? Do you have mitigation plan in place? And that sometimes gets forgotten. We just make decisions and don't have a plan when things go oops in the night, right? When something happens, right? In aviation, has matured quite a bit. I'm afraid that the information system and cyber operation has not matured enough. All right, the risk sources could be uncertain financial markets, threat from project failures in design, development, production, legal abilities. Somebody gets into your computer's house and distracts members' information, makes it public. Credit risks, accidents happen. And I'm just not talking about an accident that somebody gets hurt. A computer gets destroyed. A cable for the internet that provides support to your unit gets cut, and all of a sudden you didn't have a backup plan. Natural causes, the latest, I guess one of the bigger ones out there was Katrina in New Orleans, and the data centers in New Orleans for the Navy that got flooded. That we have COOP, Continuing Operations Plan. A deliberate attack from an adversary or events of uncertainty or unpredictable root cause. And again, do things happen? But one that is not here is also the insider threat. And that means your employees, your failure to plan, an employee gets mad at you and suddenly releases privileged information or secrets about your company or about your finances that go out. It does happen. People take revenge on the boss. They publish emails that were not supposed to get out. That kind of stuff too. There's never, we can say that in most cases, you cannot prevent everything, but you can provide some level of protection around your activities, whether it's personal or organization, to protect both you and the organization. You got to think about stuff like that. So there is every organization has what they call risk management standards. Some are provided by organizations hard outside, like the Project Management Institute, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, professional organizations like IFSM, the Armed Forces Communication Electronic Society, which I'm part of. They provide standards that you can look and they are shared across different industries as best practices of how to manage risk. And then ISO comes from the word ISOs for equal. Anyway, just wanted to say that. Methods, definitions, and goals vary widely according to whether the risk management method is in the context of project management. So that's one standard. Security requires a different security or risk management standard. If it's engineering, industrial, financial, portfolios, actuary, but they all have some commonalities, but they have to be tailored to that particular portfolio or enterprise you're working with. Methods, again, I'm not getting too much into this, except that they'll kind of follow a framework like this: identify characterize threats, assess the vulnerability, determine the risk, identify ways to reduce the risk, and prioritize risk reduction measures. You're going to have to figure that out in the sense of, to what level or to what method to use. But they all kind of follow these 5 steps. But again, when in an organization, when you're a project manager or just an employee that's being put in charge of something, you may want to ask the question, what methods for risk management you have? And they may start looking at you with a deer with the head cut up, with the lights on. Deer with the lights on, that's it. Eyes light up. Just be the pioneer on that, because you will show a certain amount of consciousness that other people may not be aware of, that every project has to have some level of risk. And don't address it from the negative, address it from the positive. What methods are there so that I can manage how to make decisions. That's another way to put it, right? That when I come into a conflict, how do I manage those decisions, i.e. risk? I think that's a more positive way of doing it. General risk analysis process is another way of doing it. Establishing the context, identifying, assessment, risk option, risk management plan. This is also for high-level projects. People do develop risk management plans to address all kind of issues out there in their projects. And then you implement it. You make people aware that there's a plan in place, and if there's workarounds that need to be done, you implement those. And then you continually review and evaluate the plan depending what the project is. Risk options, they avoid the risk altogether. Transfer the risk. Some people buy insurance, believe it or not. There's a risk that they may lose a certain amount of clientele. There's insurance for that. If there is an accident, there's insurance for that. They're very expensive, but people do have them. Design a new business process with adequate built-in risk control and containment measures for that from the start. Sometimes it's a material issue, but sometimes it's a process issue. So how are you going to mitigate? But you create a new process that manages the issues that may come up. And then periodically you reassess the risks that are accepted. Then classifications, I mentioned low, medium, high. This is another way of doing it. Risk avoidance. You do everything possible to eliminate that risk. Risk sharing. You transfer, outsource, or insure. I hate to tell you this, but the deep horizon oil disaster many years ago, BP was the company, and they thought they had done this by contracting a different company in charge of the Deepwater Horizon rig. but they were also really integrated into it. So they transferred the risk, but not enough, and it almost bankrupt BP. So just be careful with that. Risk transfer sharing works sometimes, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're completely cut off from the responsibility. But outsourcing is one way to reduce risk. Risk reduction, optimize, mitigate. You come up with a COOP plan, continuous operation plan. You try to maximize that thing that you're working on to the point that it reduces the possibility of it happening is reduced quite a bit. And then risk retention, you accept it. You're gonna say, we know that this is a risk, that we are in a facility that only has one way of getting in it, and we know that if it gets cut up, there'll be a problem. And now that's a big responsibility to accept, but people have done that. I will not recommend it unless the impact of retaining the risk is so low that it's not a factor, or it will be minimal, especially in the budget, minimal impact to the budget and to personnel. Just be careful with that one. Okay, so now we're going to get into the week 6 part. Again, why I introduce that is because I think it's missing from the material, and I think people assume that once they get trained, they're going to have all the tools. And in IT and information systems, whether you realize it or not, there's always a level of risk of people who are pushing buttons and creating applications and that kind of stuff too. And sometimes they come naively thinking that it's all the company responsibility. No, you have a role on that too. Another thing is I wanted to mention here there is for professional, the college degree experience are okay, but the certifications is the important part. So if you're in a IT professional development track, information system management, cybersecurity, whatever it is, make sure you have the certifications, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. Approaching the unknowables, ethical issues said to arise whenever one party is in pursuit of his goal, engaging in behavior that materially affects the ability of another party to pursue its goal. That's kind of what, that's bringing this idea of risk now into the issue of ethics, right? Two people, right? You start working this way with certain moral standards and ethical standards. Now, suddenly there's another person that is impacting. And, my biggest issue with this course, as we teach ethical standards and talk about ethics, we're not really doing a good job in the material to explain to you that it is one thing to know the material and the types of ethical standards. It is another thing to model it and inspire others to follow it, right? And what I have found is in order to be a professional, IT professional that models that, you really have to have a more open view of what's going on around you and the personalities and ethical moral standards of other people. Now, it doesn't mean that you merge them, it's not a question of diversity. It's a question of you setting a standard that everybody aspires to in the execution of their skill sets. All right. 4 factors: a clearly identified moral agent. In your work environments, you set a standard that people see you as a morally a person that is solution based and that makes the right decision. And even when you don't make the right decision, they know you enough to know that you are pursuing the higher better, the standard of excellence that you want other people to imitate. A set of alternative courses of actions available to the agent, meaning, do you have a plan when people walk into your door and have things that they bring at you? Do you have the ability to respond? Now, this is what I learned too. You don't have to respond quickly. It's okay to say, I do not know, but I will find out. I think there's too many people that just want to provide an answer, and that causes more confusion because they haven't thought about the problem. This is why I teach the ham sandwich in asking the questions. And when you respond, try to respond in one-page position papers rather than just blurting stuff out. I've been in the presence of generals that ask me a question, and I will say, sir, I'm gonna have to get back to you because I want to give you the correct answer now. And then sometimes they'll push you, but what is your estimate, right? In that time, you have to make sure it says, okay, my estimate is such, but I still want to pursue that and get more information. People will not diminish you because you're being honest. They diminish you for being a knucklehead that provides answers that do not prove correct over and over again. But if you are able to provide honest answers that stick to the problem at hand and gives yourself the ability to come back and correct yourself, they will admire that. All right, I'm not gonna find there's also a spectacle. Okay, let's just leave it there. What guides us? There is a lot of things that we can base our ethics. The scores gave you the theories of ethical standards. I will recommend that everybody in here, whether you're in HR, in IT, in cybersecurity, that you associate yourself with one of those associations that they're available to you. Like I mentioned, the Armed Forces Communication Electronic Association, AFCEA, because you learn about what the instructor said, you learn about their codes, their professional codes. You go to the website, the professional standards are published, and you study and you have a basis from which to step on as you move into this world of cybersecurity. I have met too many people that do not know where they stand on. They have been very successful, to say they're good people that make good decisions until they don't anymore. And what I have found is a lot of those people have been working on suppositions that work for most of their career until they assume more responsibilities, and then they're not prepared. And now a lot of cybersecurity is directed by law too. So those associations help you train on knowing what's the standard, what codes are there, what laws are prevalent that you need to know. Okay, the benefits of technical advances may have negative efforts. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about risk, job eliminations, remote flexibility by mobile, crime, and social class. Okay, that is more talking about all the other risks that I didn't mention those, but all the other things that could happen as you advance certain IT platforms, and AI is a big one, right? I'm worried about network security, folks, and what AI is going to be doing to cybersecurity and network design. So we'll see how that pans out. Other concerns: legal, economic, government. Where we're to play enhanced activities of the government, and it seems like in the IT world, government is more, not less. So there's a lot of things that you may not be allowed to do, especially if you're in a nonprofit, if you're in the government or commercial. Commercial seems to have more latitude, but still, they're, the protection of PII, health records, all that kind of stuff. So if you're in that industry, design information system, you are going to be covered by a bunch of little legal regulations. Same thing with banking. So again, you're going to have to become experts, not necessarily experts, but have people who are the experts that can help you design systems in a way that meet the requirements of other, and a lot of them are audit requirements too. Anyway, this class doesn't get into that. It's more overview, but anyway, you have to be conscious of that. Other issues related to IT, rule of law, and internet e-commerce, even the United Nations trade laws impact, jurisdiction, like legal recognition of electronic documents, electronic signatures, ideas, trade secrets, intellectual property. If you're a company and you're an owner of a company, you would like your products to be kept secret. I have a young nephew of mine here who is into application development, and he's getting to the healthcare system, and believe me, he's learning a lot about all that stuff. Domain name disputes. You create a domain, you start using it, figure out that somebody else has it and they have the rights to it. It could cost you money. Consumer privacy protection, cybercrime, censorship, and content regulations. All right. Future challenges. Now, I'm going to go off the class a little bit because I want to show you something real quick that is coming. It's this idea of technology and singularity, where basically technology augments you, and all of a sudden we all have one purpose, one mind. And I think that's going to be accelerated with AI. The reason I bring this back is just so you can follow it in the back of your brain housing group, and think about the impacts of your decision, especially as things become more collaborative and more related to each other. Think about the provisions and all these meta glasses out there that basically can record everything. They can, as you're walking, you can see the data on the people you're viewing right in your glasses. And all of a sudden you're sharing information. You may be recording people, they don't know they're being recorded. So anyway, it's an interesting video. It doesn't last very long, but I'll have a little discussion after that. All right, here he goes.
One of the apprehensions that people have about this technological singularity, which is really a metaphor. It's a metaphor borrowed from physics to describe what happens when you go through a black hole. The center of a black hole is a singularity. The laws of physics as we know them kind of collapse or implode. They no longer apply. It's a great metaphor that we borrow to use to describe what's going to happen with technology. We're going to hit this inflection point, this singularity, where it's going to be like a runaway train that builds on itself. And the Terminator scenario is that this artificial intelligence, this algorithm is going to wake up, it's going to achieve sentience, and it's going to turn on us. But that's, I think, an erroneous way of looking at it. Some of the more optimistic futurists in Silicon Valley, including people like Kurzweil and Kevin Kelly, for example, who wrote What Technology Wants, say that what's going to happen instead is that we're going to continue to augment our own thinking by offloading more and more of our own cognition, our cognitive apparatus, to non-biological intelligence. So it's not so much that that mind is going to rise, that artificial mind is going to rise up against us, but that we're going to continue to become more non-biological. In other words, we already offload cognition onto non-biological props and scaffoldings. When you write something down on a piece of paper, part of your thinking is happening on that paper. Part of your thinking is happening by you moving your hand on that pen. Part of your thinking is occurring when you stare at the contents of your own mind on that paper and reflect on what you wrote. We already incorporate non-biological aspects into our thinking apparatus. There's a great essay written by these cognitive philosophers called David Chalmers and Andy Clark, cognitive philosophers, called the extended mind thesis, which says that things like an iPhone or a smartphone are already manifestations and extensions of the mind, and that the mind is actually not limited to the brain, but that the mind exists in the feedback loops between brains, tools, and environments. So that's why we say our thoughts shape our spaces and our spaces return the favor. That's why they say that everything we design is designing us in return. Marshall McLuhan used to say, we build the tools and then the tools build us. So what really exists are feedback loops of mind. It's not us versus them. It's all one large distributed intelligence that has biological and non-biological parts. That's why I don't think that we have anything to be afraid of. It's just billions of baby steps that increasingly extend and augment our creative capacity.
All right. I'm just going to leave that thought in there because, to be honest, if you start thinking of the implications he's saying in technology and where we're going, and the ethics of it all, it goes back to that book in 1988. Michael Shepard, I believe his name. I may have the last name wrong. It's a world without secrets. I see it coming. And so as you develop information system, you're an IT professional in that environment. Where are you today? Let's just, move on from there. IT specialist, there's kind of a hierarchy of professionals out there. There's IT specialists, those are the guys who are application developers, network designers, that kind of stuff too. And then they're the ones that are more on the managers. So there's a technical side and then there's a management side. And depending on which track you're in, know that there's going to be a little more responsibilities. Well, the IT specialist, even at the higher level, like I had a one staff sergeant in our command who became a civilian, and he basically designed the network. He focused on that. He had very little people to manage, and those people he managed were also technical. And then there is the managerial side that involves more with the business and operation piece of it, and basically carry a lot of that management business responsibility too. And to be honest, they don't always speak the same language. You'll find that the IT specialty talks ones and zeros and lots of acronyms. The exponential talk some of that too, but they're more focused on results. And then there is the relationship, and then it's not mentioned here, but your customer who needs this capability or is asking for that capability may not talk the same language too. Who assumes responsibility for the implementation of the application if there's issues with applications? Anyway, those are things that as you go into those jobs, whether it's even in HR now, is moving more and more towards cloud-based information. Even the assistants to hire become more cloud-based. That information becomes valuable. Valuable adds risk adds responsibilities to manage that risk. So there's a OODA loop of decision making that needs to happen at all those levels. This is the IT specialist. I'm just going to leave it here for a second. It can be competitive. The challenge is that clients are more demanding and influence the process. And you'll find that a lot of software development now is done where the client is part of the development asset. So when the IT is writing an application or listening system is constantly talking. But those type of systems tend to be flexible, but they also tend to be smaller. When you're talking large scale capabilities, it's hard to have the competent specialists talking to a customer at the same time. And you have, and to be honest, one of the things that I would like to do with my students, and you'll see in week 7 and 8, is the pursuit of creating you to be the translator between the IT specialist, IT professional, and the rest of the world. We do not speak the same language, and sometimes the IT guy has a hard time understanding what the client wants. All right, they're viewed as professionals, but they are not managers. IT professional, the relationship is complicated. There's IT workers, the employees, IT professionals with clients and suppliers. So basically 2 different views, 2 different skill sets. I'm just kind of highlighted. The book I don't think did this in detail enough of the different type of things that go into roles. There's a tier 1 is the help desk. Tier 2 is problem management. 3 is enterprise capabilities, like enterprise applications. So an organization normally they view things in tiers. There's also asset manager. There's a contracts guy. There's a facility guys, financial and security folks that also work supporting the tier 1, 2, and 3. And there are more tiers, and there are different ways to split a cyber IT profession. But especially as today, when we're not just looking at the application anymore, we're looking at the facility where that application is being covered, especially if you're talking cloud IP, you're talking about the light, you need 2 sources of light, and then you need a backup to the light, because when one Dominion power fails, what is there to support it? Do you have a backup power supply? Do you have a generator that can supply? And then what do you do in interim when things fall from one system to the other one? You got backup batteries that are sitting there waiting to take the load. Then there is the issue of internet connectivity. Do you have 2 ways to connect the facility in a way? So you can see how there's all these other things, physical and security, that in the past we didn't think about. Then there's the plans officers, there's project management, there's information assurance folks, there is the operational guys, yada yada. This is just a few of the roles. This is DoD certifications. The approved 8570. I've been told that they have changed the nomenclature of 8570 DoD. If you type DoD 8570 certifications, you'll see lists like this. They're constantly changing. Each level there's a different requirement for certifications, but what you want to do is figure out what you are in this chart, what level of support you are, and again, my recommendation is to look at the internet, put DoD 8570 certifications, and then pick where your track record is, and get those certifications you need for the job. Don't worry about how many it is. Just start with the basics. Cyber security, networking. Those are the essentials that you start with, and then from there you'll build up. And once you get the job, then they'll give you some of the more elevated certifications that you may need for the specific job. All right, let's just stop there for a second And that covers week 6 from my perspective and the application side. So I took you from risk all the way to what the roles are. Now let's talk about the assignment. I'm very happy with week 5 assignment, the paper B. Let's talk a little bit about the paper C that is coming. All right. Activities, assignments, paper C. Okay, I'm gonna make this large so my picture will go away. Edit assignment. Ta-ta. All right. So this one is current or emerging technology ethics research paper. You have a paper objective. The objective for the paper is to, and they have the outline for you. What is the topic selection? Select the digital ethical issue for the research that is caused by an existing or emerging technology. Next week I will be detailing this in more detail, but for now know that you must select a new ethical issue, something you haven't used before. And keep in mind that the technology aspect of these assignments are different from paper A, making frameworks to IT related issues, or paper B. Okay. So the link below provides some suggested topical ideas. You're going to have a research paper outline. So again, we give you the ham sandwich. It has a title page, topic justification, research questions, state your question. You've done something similar in paper A, I believe. Justify why, and then your research finding, research conclusions, and your reference base. So this is the paper right here, right? You create a ham sandwich based on this, and you answer those questions in there. All right? Talks about APA format. Okay, what ethical issues? I believe they give you ethics articles that you can pursue. It can be any of this, but it has to be your research and your article. Paper, okay. The last thing I'm going to introduce now is the paper presentation D. Let me get back to that. 10. All right. So again, just a very simple paper, title page, topic justification. This is your paper C. State your question, justify why, research conclusions, and again, all the elements you need to do the assignment are in paragraph 3, with the other, I guess we'll call it instructions on paragraph 1 and 2. Very easy to do. All right, let's jump to assignment number presentation D. The good news about presentation D is that you're going to do a presentation using one of your peers' paper C. Okay? So, but there's a big difference. This is supposed to be a project, and I am not going to do that. I'm actually going to lessen the requirements of the presentation. I'm not allowed to change the instructions. So what I done is I created the slides, and I created my own instructions that I want you to follow. So I cannot take this out, but please, hopefully you have read my weekly messages, and I'm gonna go to that right now, announcements. And on today's week 6 overview, I provide the instructions of what needs to be done. So this is the paper D instructions for you guys. I'm not a fan of group instructions. However, since this is a requirement for this class, I'm adjusting the instructions. So each group, so there's 2 groups, group 1 and 2, will select one paper from among the group submission. So everybody in group 1 is going to share their papers. Everybody in group 2 is going to share it, and they're going to pick one paper they think is the best to do their own critical review using the template I'm going to give you of that paper first, of the leader submitted. You pick one. He's not a leader, but that becomes your lead paper. All right. So now, with these 2 exceptions, it's an individual effort. The group part is each group must select, and I'm repeating myself, I know. Each group must select a single paper C submission that everybody can do a review on. The author of the paper must provide one slide to everybody in the group. Basically, they're going to fill out information about the paper and why they selected. So everybody's going to have the same slide too. And then each member is going to complete the rest of the paper. And then you submit your application. Everything else in here is pretty clear. And again, I don't want to overwhelm you right now. I repeat myself a lot here. But the important thing to know is that I already gave you the template to use. So let me go to that template. Again, this submission will be for prior to class on Wednesday, or from the last Wednesday class. So I'm just introducing it so you're aware. So work on paper C, and out of that paper is where you select. Oh no, don't do this to me. Crap, it's gonna make me sign again for the application. Let me see if I can open it without give me a second here. See if I can open it just in the preview. I guess I can use Keynote. All right. No. Okay, it's opening. Okay. So this is a page. You're gonna pick a paper and you're gonna put individual review of the title of the paper, who wrote the paper, your name, the school name and date. This is the one that the author of the paper has to give to all of the students. Who's the author, the overview of the topic, and the rationale. So the author of the paper writes this one slide and gives it to everybody. And then this is your actual submission. What the student paper got right and what it got wrong. Actually, that should be two bullets. And detailed comments as well as references go in the notes section. So all the stuff that's detailed goes over here in the notes. Then the second slide is all the areas of issues to consider about that issue, things that they were not covered, anything else you want to add about the ethical issue. Again, highlights go on the slide, the comments go in the notes. And that's it. Very simple. So pick a paper. Okay, let me get out of this. Delete. So from the group, pick one paper. That paper is shared with the group and you do a review of it. The only group part of it is you selected one paper from a member of the group and the person who picked fills out the slide too. It's that simple. I also want to highlight here, let me sure, I hope I didn't close my thing, is on the discussion areas on the, let me cancel this. Yes. On the discussion areas at the bottom, there's two discussion forums for you guys to share discussion. So if you want to share, talk about the slide 2, if you want to talk about what paper, you can do all that coordination in here for all the groups. All right, let me get out of here. Let me bring this up. I hope that was enough material to give you what you need. I apologize that I'm not there. I will provide more information as I go. In case I make it, good, but I will let you know early enough if I'm not able to. God bless, and I hope this helped out. And I'll miss you guys. I wish I was there. Adios. You take care.